let's take a look at cultural, linguistic, and socioeconomic diversity, which also has a significant impact on early childhood programs in the United States. In this content talk, we will also briefly examine the changing roles within a family, such as grandparents raising grandchildren. Over the last couple of decades, there has been an increase in cultural diversity across the United States. Cultures have different ways of organizing the family. Some institute a hierarchy in the family with a male figure at the top of the family. Other families have a female figure at the top of the family structure. Some cultures put more emphasis on being individualistic, and others are more collectivist. Cultures that place more value on working to help yourself rather than working to support the group may have different interpretations of family than the collectivistic cultures, where the value is placed on working towards the good of the group rather than the good of the individual. Where at one time the majority of the population was white of European descent in the United States, those numbers are declining. There has been an increase in people in the United States who are of different backgrounds, including Hispanic, Asian, and African American. Due to the rise in the Hispanic population, in particular, there will be an increase in dual language learners in our early childhood classrooms. The United States' changing demographics has implications for child development given the influence of culture and ethnicity on development and learning. Linguistic diversity is changing. For almost 1 in 3 children, that would be 23 million, a language other than English is spoken at home. About 4.9 million public school children are dual language learners. Between 1980 and 2009, use of a language other than English at home increased by 148%. In non-English language households, Spanish is by far the most prevalent household language, accounting for about 2/3 of dual language learners, or about 16 million children. The next largest group are those in households using some other Indo-European language, such as French, German, Russian, Hindi, followed by children using Asian or Pacific Island language. Language diversity in the United States has changed rapidly over the past 3 decades. The use of a language other than English at home has increased greatly. Other languages such as Spanish, Vietnamese, and Russian have had considerable increases in their use as well. Families in the U.S. are linguistically diverse. These characteristics influence the trajectory and the patterns of child development and learning. There's also socioeconomic diversity in American families, and the gap between high-income and low-income families is forever increasing. Children in low-income families are more likely to achieve less academically, they're more likely to exhibit more problem behaviors, and are less healthy than children reared in families that are more affluent. Unfortunately, these negative consequences persist into adulthood. There are also negative implications for brain and biological stress levels. Further, there is a higher concentration of poverty for families who are in minority groups. Socioeconomic diversity. In recent years, disparities between the wealthy and the poor have increased. This means changing how we define the middle class also. For many children, it is uncertain if they will be able to achieve the same socioeconomic status as their parents. Many families require at least 2 incomes in order to maintain a modest lifestyle. For families in poverty, the income from the full-time employment is not enough to meet the family's needs. With the changing job market, increased emphasis has been placed on college education. For families in poverty, children may begin to worry or may begin to work and support the family, and the family may not have the extra finances to support the child through college. So these limited finances can lead to extra stress and worry on the family. This lack of financial resources also results in fewer opportunities and fewer choices. The gap between high income and low income and middle class families is growing, and families with lower incomes are likely to experience hardship and stress. Another important point is that income disparities also vary by racial and ethnic backgrounds. So as you can see depicted in the slide, you can see the national average of all individuals compared to specific ethnic and racial groups such as non-Hispanic white, Hispanic, Asian Pacific Islander, American Indian, and African American. What is the likelihood that you or your family member will live in poverty? If you're white, approximately 13 out of 100. For African Americans, that increases almost 3 times to 38 out of 100. Let's think about the roles and how they're changing for families and how that might affect families and your work with them. We will look at grandparents raising grandchildren, multi-generational households, families with parents who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, both parents who are working outside of the home. Many children live in households with more than their parents and siblings. 78 million children live in households headed by grandparents or other relatives. This includes those where the children's parents may or may not be present. Historically, about 1/3 of families have been multi-generational households. However, in 2008, nearly half of the families were multi-generational. In 8 years, it rose to 64 million. With the increase in longevity, there has been an increase in the number of families who are 4 and 5 generations. Research has also seen that the bonds between the siblings can become more important. With the increase in age, there's also a need for families to care for individuals with chronic or serious illnesses for longer periods of time. About 2 million children are being raised by parents who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. Does this number surprise you? What do you think it means for early childhood programs? These children will definitely face different types of stressors. They cope with inappropriate questions, the politicalization of their families, anxiety about the lack of legal recognition, and more. Many parents who are LGBT feel constrained when it comes to choosing where to live, where to work, where to worship, where to vacation, where to send their children to school, and carry around these stressors. They also carry around paperwork just to make sure that they will be recognized as a legitimate family when they travel or relocate. Although reports to prevent bullying in school of youth who are LGBT have grown, less attention has been paid to children of parents who are LGBT. Nearly 2/3 of children under 6 years old have both parents in the labor force, while nearly 3/4 of children 6 to 17 years old have both parents in the labor force. This means these families need childcare. Some parents have other family members watch their young children during their work hours, while others use center-based or other non-relative care, such as in-home childcare. In either setting, the interactions between caregiver and family are important. Think about that this is part of the mesosystem in Bronfenbrenner's bioecological model that was introduced earlier weeks. We can think about how these different systems support or detract the child from learning and development. Many children spend a large portion of time in childcare or school, making this a relevant context to understand as it relates to child development. Families you serve are dynamic. Family composition, marital status, income, and other aspects may be ever-changing. Many different factors may influence children in early programs such as poverty, incarceration, immigrant status, homelessness, military deployment, and so much more.